What is going on, everybody, and welcome to the official 3rd Age Reforged YouTube channel. My name is Jordan, also known as J-Monster. Thank you for joining me for another replay battle. In fact, I am joined by a co-commentator today, that being Cannon Fodder. I want you to say hello.
Hello everyone, it's good to see you all again. Hopefully this time you won't hear my son screaming his head off as much as in the last one we did with one another.
I personally think it's adorable, but...
I tell you now, 3 in the morning, it feels less and less adorable.
Oh god, I can only imagine. But in any case, we have a 4-person FFA for you, done on the Beacons of Gondor map. Not a map you see very often, mostly because it's a giant hill and people don't usually like to fight uphill. But the person who sent it in is actually the Arnor player, that'd be Masty, so thank you very much for your contribution to the channel. It is very much greatly appreciated. But in any case, let's get into the army comps. I'll do Arnor and I'll do the Woodland Realms, and then Cannon Fodder will take over for the other two. So of course, the first army we're going to look at today is the Kingdom of Arnor, commanded by Masty. He's got a unit of Arnor Knights. He's also got a bodyguard back here, which of course is where his general's bodyguard, or his general rather, is going to be hanging out. And he's got a couple units, I believe, of the Knights of Anuinas, who are very, very fearsome in this current patch. They've got like 3 HP and like armor out the wazoo, so they're not easy to kill by pretty much anything, except maybe wargs. Wargs are a decent counter to them. He's got a couple units of Dunedain Rangers on his skirmish line, and the requisite 2 units of Dunedain Troll Slayers, who are basically ranged javelins with, I think they have like 18 or so AP damage. Like, they do a lot to units at ranged, and they're good in melee as well. Moving on, he's got his main line consisting of 4 units, I believe, of Arnor Pikemen, and backing them up, he's got 4 or 5 units, I believe, of the Arthedain Men-at-Arms. Finally, his third line, his Triarii, so to speak, consists of 2 units of dismounted Dunedain Knights, who are another 3 HP unit, so this Arnor force is very well-rounded and has a lot of staying power. Moving on to the Woodland Realms, we've got, I think, 4 units. Actually, it's being commanded by Moran, by the way. He's got, I think, 2 units of Forest Wardens on the front here. They're spearmen. They're okay. Don't expect them to do great things. They've got fairly light armor, but as being elves and being spearmen, they have really high melee defense. He's got a couple units of Hiri Beng for his skirmish line, and 2 units of the Woodland Sentinels, who are nice medium-tier ambush archers. I think they've also got multiple HP as well, so they can stand up quite well to other units in a skirmish fight. They do not have a ton of armor, however, so definitely be aware of that and try and pick their battles accordingly. Finally, he's got, I think, 4 units of Forest Bladesmen, 1 unit of the Elder Royal Guard, or the Elder Palace Guard, rather, which is where his general's going to be hanging out. You can see Thranduil right there looking all sexy. And finally, he's got a cavalry contingent composed of 2 units of Elder Pathfinders, who are solid shot cavalry. But let's pass it over to Cannon Fodder now.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with the Mordor force, and the Mordor force is a scary force, and it's definitely making the most of his money. And by that, what I mean is we've got Mordor, Modoron everywhere. This is ridiculous. I don't know if people haven't seen these units before, they may have seen them previously, but the value to what you get out of these guys is phenomenal. And quite rightly, Arcturus has made the most of this. But what we'll do is we'll look at the units which aren't part of that first. So he's got some mounted Númenórean shield guard at the back for some light cavalry. Got some standard Uruk-hai. Looks like his general's unit is going to be Temple Inquisitors. Fantastic. I've always been a big fan of them. He's got a catapult there for the trolls. He's got Sauron's Will. He's also flanked by yet another mounted Númenórean shield guard. He's got some Númenórean shadow guard, some temple guard for some more archers, and then we're on to the sort of the mass, which would normally be the cannon fodder, but in this case they're really good units. So he's got some standard Uruks for his heavy infantry. Looks like he's got maybe 4 or 5 units of that, along with looks like another 3 halberdiers, and then in amongst that he's got the maulers as well, which is a really nice sort of large number of AP as well. I mean, there's 190 in the unit. Definitely going to be useful going forward, and probably going to be heavily used against the dwarves, which I'll just move on to. He does have a couple of bow units as well. Really good in terms of their damage. Some of the damage can rival even elven archers. They are meant to have less accuracy, but if you're firing into a blob, you're almost never going to miss, so I think it's definitely worth it. And talking of blobs, the dwarves by the Lord Pure Legacy has definitely gone for a dwarven blob. I think it's quite concerning. I think if I was Mordor and I had my catapult and I knew that dwarves were downhill from me in such a formation, I would see this as a fantastic opportunity to get some nice cheap kills. Having said that, he's got what looks like 3 crossbow units backed up behind them with some spears on his flank. In his main center, he's got some dwarven miners, which are actually very good for their price. If I had to do sort of a really cheap unit, which is can hold their own, dwarven miners can actually do pretty well as a nice cheap AP unit. They're backed up with some halberdiers, which have been very good since the last patch. I think halberdiers have been sort of the unsung hero for quite a lot of battles of late, just because of the damage they can do once they're in formation. Got some axemen of Erebor at the back, looks like 2 units, and on the other flank he's got some Erebor infantry, which look very stunning in their beautiful little outfits. Sons of the Fallen, which literally don't fall, backed up with some Mithril Guard, who are much the same, and some Dragon Slayers, because why wouldn't you have the top 3 tiers for the dwarves? And then he's got himself a catapult with it. What I would say though is I'd expect catapult shots coming in for those from the off, but we'll see what happens.
Yes, that just about does it for the army comps. Let's go ahead and let's jump into the replay. I hope you guys enjoy it. Alright, so as the battle begins, we can see the Dunedain forces beginning to already open up fire on the elves, who are looking like they might be out skirmished. Not something I'm sure the Woodland Realm is very used to.
No, one thing I did find interesting is whether they're going to go by sort of respecting the 1v1s. And the reason I say that is because, ironically, the Woodland Realms and Arnor didn't bring any siege weaponry. And within that, no one bought a ballista. Now, traditionally, not many people bring catapults anymore, because someone inevitably will always bring a ballista and completely make it worthless. But we might see quite a good charge here from basically a forced aggressive Woodlands realm, because they're being held skirmished, as you say.
Man.
But I think he may have lost his ranges there.
That 1 unit of Elder Pathfinders, though, just got absolutely shredded.
They did, and I think those Knights of Illuminus are going to sweep through now, and they're going to block off those Pathfinders from ever escaping.
Yeah, now they're pinned against pikes and some of the best heavy cav in the game. Those Pathfinders are going to have a very bad day.
I think the sacrifice of a few Dunedain Rangers was well worth taking out the cavalry for the Woodland Realms, as a very tight, blobbed forest bladesmen go charging into the centre.
Yeah, a lot of those spears, though, maybe this will, I wouldn't say work out in his favor, but he is definitely making the most of it right now by catching those Knights of Illuminus with some cavalry and a ton of infantry. But once those pikes move in, this is going to be an ugly affair for the Woodland Realm. They don't have the armor to stand up to Arnor.
Also, we just missed it, but the dwarves had a fantastic hit with their catapult on the Numenorean shield guard, taking out probably what looks about maybe 8 to 10 in a single shot, which is just got quite lucky as it missed almost everything else.
Oh, that is just ugly. I feel bad for those Numenorean shield guard.
It is going to be answered with some fiery balls of death, which seem to be going into the back lines.
Did they get anything?
Oh,
they did. Sons of the Fallen.
Taking a pretty nasty hit, and I bet that won't be the last time you'll see them being targeted.
Oh man, and those dwarven crossbows have taken quite a beating from the Mordor skirmish line as well.
Definitely. I mean, the temple. I mean, not only is it Numenorean Shadow Guard, but it's backed up with some temple guard. I think even the crossbows of the dwarves are going to struggle with that.
Let's pump back over to the.
I was going to say, I don't think he's going to do much with the miners. No, keep going. I'll keep an eye on the battle that doesn't rage to the south.
Let's pump back over to the Woodland Realms. They're not having a good day at all. You can see the Arnor pikes and the Arthur men at arms. It's like a battle of the bastards sort of situation over here, where you've got them surrounded by pikes and men at arms, and they're actually being attacked from the rear now by those Knights of Illuminus. Yeah, this is going to be...
Well, not only are they being attacked by the rear by Knights of the Illuminus, but Mordor is starting to charge up the hill.
Against the Woodland Realm, the elves are just hated. What do you know? It looks like they had some hidden Sindar Blade Masters.
Yeah, so actually Mordor separated about half of his forces to head up the hill. Now, I don't know whether it's because he senses blood and wants to get them out of there, or maybe he just wants the position on the hillside. But he's taken his cavalry up here and he's working the back lines of the elves. It's not a good day for the Woodland Realms, possibly because they know how powerful the faction is. But Mordor separating his forces, but seemingly winning the skirmish against the dwarves, who can afford to do so.
Yeah, and he's left enough down there to be a big pain in the butt for the dwarves. I mean, it won't be easy for them. Well, with their high mass, maybe they'll be able to break that thin line. But, like, he's got reserve Mordor Uruks, and he's got some halberds in there as well. Like, he's got enough down there to be a danger. And he's also robbing Arnor of one of their more important resources. He's done a lot of damage to those Knights of Inuinas, for example.
Yeah, one of the interesting things as well is the dwarves don't have that much in their skirmish formation, so actually their crossbows have taken a pretty heavy beating. I think one of the crossbow units already wiped out there from Mordor, and Mordor seemed like he was going to feint a charge, but it does look like we may get a connect between some halberds and some fodder Mordor, but whether he's just drawing them in, I don't know, because he might want to use his skirmishes on the halberds rather than trying to take them straight up.
Yeah, he definitely doesn't want to take that engagement. Not early on, not when he has no reason to. Those halberds are really slow. So if he actually pulls back from that position now, he's going to be able to dictate, you know, when that engagement happens, and that's going to be, I would hope, when those halberds have been severely weakened. But he is actually going to charge in.
No. Yeah, he's going to go for the charge. He did get a good volley off of one of them, taking out a good 10 halberds, but he's obviously decided that he wants to hold them in position, maybe to give himself more time at the top of the hill. Maybe he doesn't want to have to focus his attention on both sides, and it could be because he wants to position his own halberds in formation.
That would make sense. Having to fight a two-front war like this is very micro-intensive, so that may just be to kind of lock things down there for the time being. Oh goodness, Knights of Inuinas getting a little bit of revenge here. See that Troll Catapult being tied up.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would say is the dwarves do need to retarget their catapult as it is firing into their own lines, which does run the risk of friendly fire, but right now it seems to be hitting nothing but dirt, as the crossbows do now move back into range. But other than that, I think Mordor's just quite happy to hold them in location for now. The balance of forces seem to be evenly matched, and he's slowly bringing up a nice thin line of halberds to back up his heavy infantry here, whilst he's mopping up some miners on either flank.
I'm going to pop back up to the top of the hill and see how things are going. The Woodland Realm really having a bad day right now. That Sauron's Will is now up there backing up the Moron Uruks. There's Palace Guard, and they've just chased off a large unit of the Moron Heavy Maulers. So I think those Palace Guard will probably be able to wipe out those units pretty much on their own. But I think it's safe to say that the Woodland Realm has been knocked out of this game in a big way.
Yeah, and I think it is interesting that they're not going for the respect the 1v1s. There's even a Knights of Inuminas down here taking on some heavy maulers, and I think they're having a bit of a rough time doing it. I don't think they realised the heavy maulers would be quite so good at doing some AP damage there. I think Mordor does have to be careful though, because fighting on two fronts is difficult, and he is separating his forces out, and if the dwarves smash his lines, he's going to have trouble. Right now he's lucky because it doesn't look like the dwarves are in any hurry to outflank him, and I think that's paying dividends for the Mordor player, but depends how long the dwarves are happy to sit back and watch.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time before they move in. They are very slow moving, and they are having to kind of trudge uphill, but eventually that thin line of Uruks is going to be overwhelmed, and Mordor's going to lose a lot of his troops. I mean, it's not... I feel like he would have done better for himself, definitely, if he had just kind of peppered down these halberds and just outmaneuvered the dwarves. There's no reason to take a fight with some of the best heavy infantry in the game when it's so slow moving.
I fully agree with you. I think that Arnor was having a nice close fight with the Woodland Realm up there, and I know that Woodland Realm are a faction that you want to try and destroy early on, but I think they could have got away with allowing them to fight each other. Although having said that, it does look like he's sending in his Shadow Guard into melee, so maybe he was starting to run out of ammunition and felt the only option was to try and maybe get a better position for himself for fighting the dwarves later on and force the dwarves to fight uphill.
Yeah, ultimately I think that Mordor is going to end up losing this, and it's going to come down to the dwarves and Arnor. And if I look up at the top of the hill, Mordor's still got some forces up there, and they've managed to do a lot of damage to the heavy cav from Arnor, that's important given that the dwarves really lack that, and they can be their downfall very easily. But Arnor, look at his army. Look how intact it is. Like,
yeah, what I would say is the dwarves still haven't sorted their formation out. A number of Mithril Guard there just taken out again by a catapult, followed up by two catapults now being destroyed by the Mordor one. So they're starting to have real struggles in keeping their sort of reserve elites intact. So I think even if it does come down to Arnor and the dwarves, I think the dwarves will start losing steam soon.
Yeah, they've still held on to their elite core, which will not be an easy thing for Arnor to beat. But Arnor's... Ooh, those poor Axemen of Erebor. But Arnor has their Dunedain Knights to fall back on, and they're a really nice anchor for the Arnor line, so it'll be interesting to see how this goes.
I do think that he needs to be careful. His spears now in a nice long formation again. I think that's catapult worthy to me. I think that would be a good angle for any catapult if he realises on the Mordor side. He could rack up some good kills on those reserve units, which seem to be, in my opinion, in a strange column.
Yeah, absolutely. He may have them there just to protect his flanks from any cavalry coming in from Arnor, but Arnor is well and truly busy. And you're right. Ooh, friendly fire in the line right there. Did you see that? Those Ironfoot halberds on the left.
Did see that. As I was saying before, the catapult needs to really think about changing its target. I think it wants to go for the blob of the heavy maulers at the back, but I just don't think it's worth it. Not while his units were winning that fight. Wasn't worth wasting, and he lost some valuable units there for no reason.
Absolutely. He is moving his catapult forward now. Looking like he wants to change the angle a little bit. Oh, I don't know how much longer he's going to have it, though. That was a really close call there. One of the shots from Mordor almost taking out that catapult.
Yeah, it's their last one as well, so they want to try and hold on for it as long as possible. As the Axemen of Erebor start moving in to reinforce the lines, which the friendly fire took out. Oh, and there's some more friendly fire. But from the other side this time.
Ooh, Mordor can't afford that, and that is actually going to break his center. It's going to send those Uruks and those halberds fleeing for their lives.
Yeah, really unfortunate to see. I think he really needed them to stay in. That was on Unit 48 as we start seeing. It looks like our first general falling.
It looks like Mordor's general, in fact.
Yeah, it does as well, which certainly isn't going to help the already low sort of morale of the orcs. And he has changed his target to go for those spears for the catapult, but it just drops a little bit short.
It looks like Arnor is going to come out of that really strong. They've got a lot of infantry left. They've got a lot of, well, a fair amount of cavalry. They've got some bodyguards. They're going to have some Knights of Inuvinas. But most importantly, they've got this hill position and a lot of skirmishers.
I mean, that's partly, I think, the reason why Mordor went up there. But I think Mordor had to either go ham or not go up there at all. I think at this point Arnor is more than happy to sit back and let the dwarves and Mordor fight each other. I think if I was Mordor, I would have let the Woodland Realms and Arnor duke it out for a bit more, because the more they killed each other, the more chance I would have had to finish them off. But because he can't secure that hill, because he just doesn't have enough forces, I think that maybe he's just going to get blocked up there, and he could have really used them against those dwarves.
Absolutely. But down on the Dwarven line, actually exactly what you were predicting has come to pass. Those Ironfoot spears started to get targeted by the catapult, and if you look down there, there's piles of dead dwarves.
Yeah, the one advantage they've got, however, it looks like the catapult is out of ammunition as the trolls start making their way to the front lines, but I have a feeling that the dwarves will have no trouble mopping up some simple catapult troll units. Although the Temple Guard have now been engaged with the Axemen of Erebor, so that'll be an interesting fight, as I think there goes the Woodland Realms general.
I thought maybe it was Arnor's general, but no, you're right, that's the Woodland Realms. And that's going to be all she wrote for the elves. Surprising, Woodland Realm is usually a very strong faction, especially in a free-for-all where they're not necessarily being focused down. I don't think he had like the heavy infantry and the comp really to deal with what Arnor brought to the table.
No, I agree with you, and interestingly enough, I think it's quite surprising to see that the dwarves still have so many crossbowmen left, especially after they were basically destroyed so early on. I guess he just wasn't able to finish them off with Mordor because he sent so many of his archers up the hill, but I think if he'd kept his skirmishers, I think that the Shadow Guard with the temple would have been able to wipe out the entirety of the skirmish force of the dwarves. But again, because he split himself, the dwarves are now coming back, and those crossbows are going to start racking up kills in the flanks because they're positioned behind the Mordor forces now.
So far, things not looking great for Mordor. I think this is really going to be the end of them right here. Those Temple Inquisitors stuck in combat, but I don't know. The rest of the battle line has really just kind of melted around them. Temple Inquisitors are going to get a fair amount of kills, but like honestly, they're just going to be overwhelmed. They've got AP infantry in there out the wazoo, and they're just going to be surrounded and overwhelmed.
Yeah, it's a real shame. I actually thought that Mordor had a really good chance because the way the position of the hill was and the formation that the dwarves were taking was advantageous to themselves. Especially since it looked like they were going to win the skirmish fight as well. It was really all to play for, and I think Mordor could have continued to retreat and skirmish the dwarves, who would have struggled to catch up with them because of the pace that would have been required for towards the end for days. the one advantage that the dwarves have, although they are still going to be attacking uphill, is that one remaining catapult, and the question is how much ammunition does it have, and can they get some good shots on Arnold, because really they're going to have to make that count.
Even if they've only got a few shots, I mean, Arnor's not going to know how much they've got left in there. So they are going to be able to force Arnor off of that hill, which you're right is going to be a big advantage when they go into the late stage of the game here. Because Arnor's just got so much stuff, but they're all they're going to be thick and thick formation. They got a lot of pikemen. They're going to be really blobbed up.
I mean, one thing I'd be tempted to do is change my ammunition on the catapult to dead meat. Fire it up there, make Arnor think that I'm out of ammunition, have them charge down to me off the hill, and then switch back to flaming shot once they're in range, and then try and hit some juicy targets.
Yeah, that could be a good way to approach it. Assuming that Arnor doesn't take that as like, oh, he's out of ammunition, I don't have to move at all.
Yeah, that is also a possibility. Again, with the crossbows taking a pretty good beating, if Arnold still has enough ammunition, which I suspect he probably does because of how short the battle really was, I think that Arnold can mop up what remains of the skirmish force of the dwarves, but it does look like he is going to come down and meet them face to face in the field. Surprisingly
enough, I think in this kind of situation you might not see a lot of players do this, but it's definitely to Mazdy's credit that he's going to come down off the hill and try and give the dwarves a bit of a fair fight.
Yeah, all credit to them. I mean, we could have sat here and fast-forwarded for ages for one of them to blink. But I do think that in my opinion, although the balance of power seems to say otherwise, I think, in my opinion, Arnor is more favourable in my point of view from this. They've got the cavalry, they seem to still have a good skirmish, and that catapult from the dwarves did fire for some time, so I can't imagine it's going to be able to rack up much kills against Arnold's forces, which seem still, in my opinion, relatively intact. Really, I think it's going to come down to what can the heavy cavalry of the bodyguard from Arnold do without sacrificing his general.
Absolutely. Let's see.
Interestingly enough, actually, Arnold has a lot of pikes. Now, normally that would be problematic with the crossbows, but if he can use his rangers effectively, I think he could finish off those crossbows before they could do anything. And then the dwarves had the prospect of charging Arnold pikemen, and I can't imagine they particularly want to do that.
Depending on the infantry unit, that may not go very well for them. The dwarves do have quite a high mass, and if they have units that can augment that even further by putting themselves in shield wall, they may be able to give that Arnor pike line a run for its money. Although it is to be said that they do have a bit of a height advantage. Although I'm not sure we're 100% clear on whether or not attacking pikes uphill actually gives them a bonus or not, or if it gives them a malice instead.
Yeah, it is a strange one. It is certainly one I'm going to have to ask people about, because we've talked about it in the past, actually, whether you just start poking them over the top of the head and thus can't do anything with your extra reach. It would be interesting to know a bit more about that and do some tests for sure.
Well, I think we're going to find out pretty quickly here. Arnor looking like they're getting themselves more or less ready to begin to advance on the dwarves. Arnor they've got a really formidable army left. That pike line backed up with Arthurine men-at-arms is no joke. Oh, that catapult, though, opening up, that's going to blow some holes in those pike blocks. That could be the game changer here that the dwarves really need.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm surprised how, as a confident, I guess, Arnold was in terms of formation, knowing that a catapult was down there. They seem like they could have stretched out and really used this field, but actually they're quite tight, and I think that's going to work against them if that catapult gets a good hit in.
It looks to me like those Arnorian skirmishers, the Dunedain Rangers, I think are the only ones who have any ammunition left. They seem to be targeting the Ironfoot spears of all things. I think I would have gone a different way with that. Definitely would have gone after the crossbows. Oh, speaking of crossbows.
Yeah, I don't think he's really realised his crossbows are so a danger, and I think he's at the point of maybe getting them mopped up, whether he wants to or not, because I don't think he's protected them very well. And I think partly that's because he's still trying to mop up the last of Mordor, which I can still see fighting away to the bitter end of to his flank.
Oh yeah, just a little bit of them hanging out over here. It's a few of the Temple Guard. We won't see too much more from them for a little bit longer, but I have to say I really like the way that Arnor is playing this. They're very confident, they're very aggressive. I mean, they're not waiting for the hill to do their work, they're just going right for it. Screening for his cavalry with his archers while he does this big frontal charge that's going to wipe out like most of the remaining crossbowmen. I really like that.
Agreed, although I really like the charge he did in the crossbows. It does look like, however, he is charging his cavalry towards spears now, which is not what I would have done. I was about to praise him for his charge against the crossbows, but I think that was a bit of an error there, a bit of a mistake, charging straight into the spears head on.
That being said, he did do reasonably well against the spears. He thinned them out a fair amount, and I think he only lost... Well, he lost about 6 or so horses in return, so we can't obviously keep that up, but it did weaken the Dwarven line a little bit. More than you would have expected, I think, given that it's cavalry charging into spears.
Yeah, totally. I think that, however, that with the space he's got, I think they'd be better use saving for rear charges, especially while he still has ammunition with his archers, and he is still doing damage to those spears and halberds in the front. And he still has juicy targets to the crossbows, which he had such a great charge on. I think he should continue to try and cycle them.
Absolutely, and you don't want to use up your cavalry's numbers in those kind of futile frontal charges against spears. Cavalry in the late game can be a serious force to be reckoned with. It wins games, to be perfectly honest. So trying to keep them intact, especially with 25 bodyguard, which is what he had earlier, that would have been, I think, a better decision than, 30 or so dead spearmen.
And I totally agree with you. I think that, as Sin has shown many, many times, cavalry can win games on their own, let alone in the late game. And I think that it is definitely the case that I think that while you still have options, keep them in reserve, because they're kind of the ace up his sleeve. And it does look like those arrows are going to continue to punish those sort of unshielded front dwarven lines. It'll be interesting to see how the dwarves react to this. At this point, I think they're going to have to consider charging up the hill, because I don't think they can hold this position for too much longer.
I agree. I mean, the spears aren't taking too much damage from that. I think a little bit, but honestly, it's the halberds that are the real danger. They've got a lot of AP, and they're going to be useful against those heavily armored Arnorian warriors. So at this point, really, there's nothing to be gained from just sitting here and taking that arrow fire, even if it doesn't do very much damage. So yeah, now is the time, I think, to charge up that hill.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of is that at least if they're soaking it, it means that his more elite troops are not having to soak the arrow fire. But having said that, I really don't think that the Dunderdine Rangers would have been able to shoot down that much of his Mithril Guard anyway. I think it's really going to be the Dwarven elites that are going to win this battle for him one way or the other, as I'm not really sure what Arnold's going to bring to really go toe-to-toe with them, except for maybe the Troll Slayers, which is still staying in sort of hidden ambush formation. But I think shifting those Dwarven elites is going to be a bit more difficult, as I think Arnor are going to consider pushing forward to face them. So maybe his Rangers are also now starting to run low on ammunition.
Looks like we're going to have a big scrap in the middle here. It's hard to say. The Dwarven, never underestimate Dwarven infantry, obviously, and they've definitely got the mass to deal with those pikes, but he's backed up his line really nicely, and we saw it in the fight with the elves. He's not afraid to throw his Arthurine men-at-arms in there with the pikes, so that's going to be a tough little, like, 1-2 punch that I don't know if the dwarves are going to be able to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always quite a fan of layering units. I do think that pikes and shield units do work well together, and I think that they support each other in their sort of their weaknesses. And apologies for the screaming baby in the background.
Oh, it's no problem. I'm sure everyone thinks it's adorable. Everyone loves babies. Looks like...
maybe. We'll see what happens with the comments. It does look like they're going to have a bit of a Mexican standoff as arrows continue now to fire a little bit in front range, but it does look like they're going over their heads. It looks like they're going for the airborne infantry actually at the back.
Yeah, that's not really going to do anything. The airborne infantry are well armored, and they've got multiple HP. So there's not really... To be fair, there's not really many juicy targets left for his arrows, so he might as well just use them up and then kind of see what happens. Ooh, it looks like he's moving in now with that pike block. If I was him, I would stop just short of that dwarven line, where that hill is the steepest and you're going to get the most benefit. Looks like the dwarves... It
does look like the dwarven catapult crew are coming out, so we know that the catapult doesn't have any ammunition. I mean, the good thing is that the Dunderdine Rangers are not bad in melee, so if it does come to that, at least he can throw them in.
Well, front lines meeting now. That is a furious fight right there. I think the Dwarven Spearmen, I think they will collapse under the weight of that kind of 1-2 pike / sword and board punch, and indeed, defeat already seems certain for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those ones where he wants to get his elites to flank round the back, but then again, as soon as he does that, he exposes himself from rear charges from what remains of the cavalry, so he's got to be careful. I mean, at this point, if I was the dwarves, I think I'd go hell for broke, try and get my elites around the back, see if I could break some of them out, break some of the formation. But you're right, toe to toe, the mass and the numbers of Arnor with the sort of layering of units, I think will slowly start to wear down the dwarves one way or the other.
That being said, we got the airborne infantry charging in there to support the spear line. But they are exhausted, and that's going to put them in a big disadvantage, especially with this hill. I think that's going to be enough to tip the scales in favor of Arnor.
Yeah, and I think Arnor deservedly has been playing very well. I feel a little bit sorry for the winning round getting destroyed on both sides, I guess. But I think now it's going to be the point where Arnor's sort of superior numbers of units is going to come into play. And I think he will flank that side and go for some rear attacks with the Troll Slayers and the Ranger.
Those Troll Slayers are actually taking quite the beating from the few remaining crossbowmen there. The Troll Slayers don't have a lot of armor. Ooh, big charge there from the Troll Slayers into the Mithril Guard. Well, that's going to be no problem for the Troll Slayers, to be perfectly honest. Those Mithril Guard rely really heavily on their armor values and don't have a ton of melee defense.
No, and it is interesting to see now as the wrapping starts to begin. I mean, the one thing Arnold needs to be careful of, they're in the position now where I think that they're in a very strong position. They don't want to overextend themselves. They could throw themselves, as there is some charging coming in from what remains of the bodyguard. It is a shame that there isn't more of them doing those charges at the back, as I think they've made their presence more well known.
Yeah, those Knights of Inuminas taking a really unfavorable charge. Downhill charge, pretty devastating, but it was into the Sons of the Fallen. That's not going to really get them very far.
No, and I think that it's getting to the point where Arno are thinking, what do I have which can take on those Sons of the Fallen? What can I finish them off with?
He doesn't really have a whole lot. He's got the Troll Slayers, but they're kind of occupied right now, fighting with the Dragon Slayers and the Mithril Guard on the other end. There's actually some crossbows in behind them that are pelting down those Troll Slayers, which is going to even out that fight.
Agreed, and I think actually what he needs to do is try and mop up that flank as quickly as possible. It does look like he's going to send some reserve forces in, and I think that if he can get that flank to break, I think that's the point where Arnold can make the most of this. But I think he really needs to think about using those extra units and come around behind. Now I know dwarves are not one for breaking, but with the combined effort of some rear charges, which I think he is going to start doing, I think he can start really wearing these guys down as the first charge comes in.
And there it is. Nice charge by the bodyguard. Going to connect right to the Dwarven center. Side down quite a lot of them very quickly. And look at that. The airborne infantry actually thinking of routing. Not something you see every day.
Really not. And actually, I'm quite surprised considering the general of the dwarves is still up and running. That they would route from a charge like that. So it does appear now that Arnor is going to throw in the reserves on that flank with the Troll Slayers. So we'll see what happens there. And hopefully we'll start to see some flanking maneuvers going on with some infantry going around the side.
And looks like that's exactly what's going to happen. More of those Dunedain Knights pouring in there. And actually the Dunedain Rangers going over to silence the one advantage the dwarves had, that being their crossbows on the flanks. And I don't think there's enough crossbows there to really stand up to the Dunedain Rangers.
No, I mean, really, it's all down to the Sons of the Fallen, and as fantastic as they are, I think they're starting to get the point to where just sheer numbers will surround these guys and finish them off towards the end, and they'll probably be the last ones on the field, but I don't think they'll hold out.
No, I'm thinking not. The Arnor pike line, it's taken some damage, a fair amount of damage, I would say, but there's just so many of them left. The pikes have taken the most, but the Arnor, or the Arthedain men-at-arms, they're still in the hundreds per unit. Like there's no way the dwarves can come back from this, I think.
No, I think it's going to slowly work against them, and again, I think that flank is going to soon break. As much as I think they'll hold out for a while, I think it's only a matter of time before the flank, which is not the one which the Sons of the Fallen on, is going to collapse.
Yeah, we can already see them being slowly beaten back. Dragon Slayers, Verid, Mithrin have taken quite a lot of casualties. They've got like 3 HP and a ton of armor, so to see them lose like 8 or 9 in the space of about 30 seconds is pretty uncommon for a unit of that caliber.
Yeah, and again, it comes to the point now where it almost feels like Arnold should have saved a little bit more of their cav rather than charging some unnecessary units, as he could really be doing more damage right now, and he's trying to cycle charge of what he's got, but actually he runs the risk of losing his cav. But I do think there's possible breaking there going on from the dwarves.
Yes, indeed, there is. Some of the halberds and the spears now fleeing for their lives. That is going to leave the Dwarven center wide open, and Arnor is going to be able to just encircle the remaining Dwarven forces on the flanks, and that is going to be all she wrote. So I'm feeling comfortable enough to put it on to 2 times about now.
Yeah, me too, and I'm going to follow with you. I think we know how this is going to play out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the Arnor force is just slowly chewing out what remains of the dwarves. You can see over on the left the Arthedain men-at-arms and the pikes surrounding the very extended line of Dragon Slayers and the few Mithril Guard that remain, all 3 of them.
Yeah, and I think he's going to basically leave the Sons of the Fallen until last.
Which is what he should do. They're very strong as a holding force, but there's not a ton of killing power behind the Sons of the Fallen.
Oh no, I completely agree with you. I think that I would leave them to the end as well.
And there goes the Dwarven General.
That'll teach him to ride to war on a pony.
What I would say is, all fairness to the players, it was really good to watch. Interesting strategies, like I said, like Mordor didn't respect the 1v1s and thought he would try and take out the Woodland Realm, which isn't a bad idea. Arnor and the Woodland Realm were very aggressive with one another, great to see. And the Dwarves, although were sort of having a difficult position at the bottom of the hill, really worked their way up. And I was really pleased to see that actually Arnor came off of its sort of camping spot, which he could have sat on, and went toe to toe. It was fun to watch. It was interesting style as well.
Like I said earlier, I really appreciated Arnor's very confident, aggressive style in this, and it paid off for them. A few other things as well, especially like what you were saying earlier, Mordor, going up that hill and helping them against the Woodland Realm. A lot of things really went in Arnor's favor this game, and I think that was probably one of the biggest. Their closest and most deadly foe was actually destroyed between not just Arnor but also the Mordor armies as well, and so that allowed Arnor to really keep his forces intact moving into the late game.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the end results here, like, the Woodland Realm was attacked on 2 sides and still got over 1,000 kills. You know, it shows the strength of the force, and you kind of see why they went for it. But I mean, the big winner here, definitely Arnor. Even when it went up against the smallest army on the field, it still came out with the highest kills overall. So, yeah, I mean, I honestly can't blame the guys for going for the Woodland Realm. I think if I was Mordor, though, I think I would either have moved everything up on top of the hill, or I would have just let Arnor continue to fight it out with the Woodlands and see what was left over. I think as much as it was interesting to see him split his force, I don't think I would have done that personally. I think he had the numbers that he could have probably beaten the Dwarves if he stayed together, especially with those Uruk-hai, especially with those archers. I think there was an opportunity there, which I think unfortunately he missed. But you know, if you don't gamble, you don't go big, you don't go hard, you don't win, do you?
At most, I would have sent my cavalry up the hill just to be a pain for some of the Woodland Realm archers, if that was the strategy that I decided upon. But honestly, yeah, letting those two fight against each other and just kind of wipe each other out is kind of an essential thing to do in a free-for-all, because otherwise you end up in a situation like this where one player has so much left over that they've almost got a crushing advantage. Not that that was really apparent in this case. The Dwarves had quite a lot left over as well, but Arnor, I was really surprised how much just sheer numbers they had moving into that confrontation with the Dwarves.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And actually, looking at the scores here or the numbers, you can really see the power of the cavalry. Although, admittedly, one of them not really getting going. Either it got chopped down or just really sort of struggled to do what it needed to. But the other two, sort of the bodyguard and the knights, they're getting well over the excess of 300, and that really paid off for them in the long run, especially against some strong units.
I agree, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll probably be doing some more dual commentaries in the future. If you guys have any comments or suggestions on like a format you would like to see with the dual commentaries moving forward, obviously we're very open to that. Make sure you just leave a comment down in the description, and something that obviously we'll take into account when we do this the next time.
And obviously, yeah, if you don't enjoy them and you think they're rubbish and you hate them, then you can say that too, I suppose.
No, just yell at Kuro. Just blame Kuro for it, because honestly,
it's true. It's all Kuro's fault. And if you're ever unhappy with Kuro, just watch when J Monster steamrolls him in the 3v3, and we'll try and find a link to that video so you can all watch Kuro's destruction.
Yeah, definitely. If you're
the good and the bad charge,
it will bring a smile to your face for sure. But yeah. I've been Jordan, also known as J Monster, and this has been Cannon Fodder.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you those who sent in the video. If you want to join the community, if you want to get involved, please join the Discord. Information will be there. We are getting close to a big release, so please watch this space.
Yeah, and by big release, he means we're going to be having a brand new faction and a ton of new maps that have been worked on by WK and the rest of the team, so keep your eyes open. But in any case, take care, everybody. Bye-bye!